Recently, I've heard a lot of people talk about the act of surrender in a way that almost feels dismissive. And I am almost scared that I'm guilty of it. But I think it's because I don't know that I am, just to be real. Like, I don't know that there's a strong enough understanding of what it means to surrender in the collective to just be throwing that word around, because at this point, where I'm hearing it, like the way that I'm hearing it used, it feels very much like a replacement or kind of a sub in for let it go or release or accept or move on, right? It's kind of like the new agey way of telling someone to just get over it, right? And so I find dealing with a lot of today's fears and anxieties and concerns, which are very different than fears and anxieties and concerns that we've, seen before. Some are similar, like our parents and grandparents have seen these things perhaps. But, we've got younger generations and we've got technology and we've got really widely spread, information and sharing of information. There's just so much. And then we have like AI, like further muddying the waters, right? And so I think that the use of the word surrender, I almost want to like stop the collective in its tracks from using it in a way that is unwise, or I guess flippant or unintentional, because it really does at this point seem to be a sub in for just move on, right? Welcome to The Sacred Gray. My name is Astrid. I'm a psychic oracle and mentor. If you're new here, it's really nice to meet you. And if you're returning, welcome. Please subscribe, drop a like, share the video, drop a comment. These are all free ways to support a growing channel. So we're just going to chat about this today because I feel like it's really important, and this is something that I want to incorporate into our conversations together. At some point on my journey, I heard someone say, and I don't know what the context was. I have no idea where this came from. It did not come from me, though. I want to make that clear. I heard someone say that you can think of a dysregulated nervous system as an indication that there's a lie in the situation, in whatever situation you're in. So, for example, if you're in a situation, if you're at home and you're having a conversation and you're noticing that you are becoming dysregulated, there's something about what you're experiencing in that moment that is creating, or I guess illuminating a story that you've told yourself that is not true. And because there is something that is not true in your reality, your nervous system is picking up. There's something going on. There's a disruption. And I like this narrative. I think it offers a barometer for an individual's, understanding of their moment to moment experience, right? And what they're manifesting. Does that make sense? But I think that too, if we kind of explore this idea a little bit deeper, what it is it's acknowledging that the reality that you want to live, the reality that you desire, does not include a dysregulated nervous system. Like if you were to bullet point, the components or the characteristics of your most ideal reality, I don't think that a dysregulated nervous system would be on that list of bullet points. I don't think that being in fight or flight or fawn or freeze would be a bullet point that you listed. Do you see what I'm saying? So in acknowledging a lie, the presence of a lie, when we are dysregulated. It gives that individual the flexibility to kind of pull back and take a look at the situation, hopefully from like an outsider's point of view, so that they can kind of dig in and critically think about what's going on and what doesn't line up, you know? Depending on the context, this could be a story that maybe we've told ourselves, this is like a subconscious story, right? Maybe if you've got a fear of abandonment that's been triggered. Well, just for example, the lie there would be that you're going to be abandoned. Well, no, because you're not abandoning yourself now, are you? Right? Like you won't be abandoned unless you abandon yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, like, sure, somebody else can leave you behind or make a decision to part ways, but I mean, you're not truly abandoned until you abandon yourself. So part of that is just acknowledging, well, I don't plan on doing that, so I won't truly be abandoned. Do you see what I'm saying? There's something about what's taking place that you just kind of have to peel it back a little bit and see where the lie is, right? It's an interesting thing to think about, and I think that it encourages us to dig a little bit deeper, to dig a little bit further, and to get to know ourselves a little bit more. Now, in bringing this, you know, why this came up when talking about surrender is because I don't think that it is easy to just let something go. I don't think that we are at a point in society where it's I think that we understand that you can't just let it go, right? Like that's basically what I'm trying to say is like it's not as simple as just letting it go, right? It's not as simple as just moving on. It never is, it never was, it never has been, and that's why that never worked, okay? So I think that the key to surrender is acceptance of what you can't control. You know, there's a number of things going on here, right? So there's acceptance of what you can't control. There's an understanding of what I call like me problems versus you problems, right? Which is this is just controlling what you can control. This is taking responsibility. This is, you know, for yourself, meaning not inflicting your problems upon the people around you, not making your problems other people's problems, because they're not other people's problems, right? If you are fully taken care of, if you're good, then you don't need to worry about anybody else not showing up for the job that maybe they didn't even know that they had in your life. Do you see what I'm saying? So taking responsibility for yourself, taking accountability for yourself, so that you know yourself, so that you know your needs, so that you can identify what problems are yours versus what problems are other people's, right? And this is a lot of this, all of this kind of comes back to what many of my discussions kind of center around, which is knowledge of self. Okay, this is where so much of our power lives and is lost because a lot of people don't know themselves. So the first thing that comes to mind when thinking about surrender is that right there, you know, understanding what you can control and then having a willingness to accept what you cannot control, and kind of practice some non-attachment there, right? I can't make someone do anything, and no one can make me do anything, right? This is the other thing is I can't make someone feel something either. I can't make someone anything. But on the same hand, no one can make me do or feel anything. So here we have that accountability portion of things where it's like, well, are you, you know, what kind of language are you using? Are you kind of blaming emotions that you're experiencing or an experience that you're having on someone else's actions? You can attribute your emotions or experiences to someone else's actions. And of course, I'm not speaking in a dramatic context here. I'm certainly speaking in more like day-to-day things, right? If I'm thinking about certain chapters of my life, even pretty recent chapters of my life, I can certainly take a look around the room and point out where someone was inflicting a state of being to me, right? And in those situations, I'm only human. I'm sorry. I'm not like, what? I might be good at this stuff, but I'm not like, I'm not what? I'm not a Zen. I'm not Buddha. Like, if you're being abusive, then I'm being abused. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's, there's kind of, don't be dumb here. Okay. You see what I'm saying? Like, don't be dumb. Like, think, listen to what I'm saying. And, but my point is just to say that, like, nobody can necessarily make you feel a certain thing, right? Like, if somebody else is having an emotional reaction to something that's going on with you, like, you have a series of choices. Let's say that you're in an argument with your partner and they say something that's hurtful and you want to recoil back with something petty. If you're anything like me, right? You want to recoil back with something petty. And you take a moment and you just kind of acknowledge, like, this is making me want to be, this is making me want to pop off, right? And once you acknowledge that, that's all it takes. Then you have the choice, then you realize that you have choice. Okay. So bringing it back to surrender, right? First thing I really do think is acknowledging how much agency you actually have and how much power you have over your human experience and what problems are your problems and what problems are other people's problems. Like, this is all kind of a part of taking responsibility, right? When you're very aware of yourself and you're very aware of what you're responsible for in yourself, then you're more aware, you have a heightened awareness of what folks are projecting onto you because you can identify it as not yours, right? So surrender, again, kind of has a lot to do with just this allowance, right? And I think, too, that surrender has a lot to do with the lenses that you're wearing, the choice to look at what is happening around you as good, as positive. So, and this is really important as well, because when we experience times in our life when surrender becomes kind of necessary or important, like, why is it coming up right now? Why is surrender, why am I even talking about this? Because the astrology of March, which is when I'm filming this, so it's March 4th, 2025 when I'm filming this right now. I might have this up tomorrow, but obviously this is a topic that transcends time. It's applicable wherever and whenever you find it, but the astrology of March of 2025 is kind of wild, right? The astrology of 2025 is wild, but this month in particular, we've got eclipse season, we've got retrogrades. There's a lot happening here, and so when people are talking about, Neptune at the anaretic degree in Pisces and moving into Aries and like all these things that bring a level of uncertainty, but also fear, like very real fear. In the collective, I guess, like anxiety, right? Because a lot of people don't understand the correlations in the archetypal images that come with Neptune and Aries. So I think it's just the implication of like, oh my God, we've got outer planets moving into new signs. All of them are moving into new signs this year. That's crazy. What does it mean? What does it mean? So I think it's a lot of just like fear of what we don't know, collectively speaking, right? So where was I even going with this? Shit, I forgot. Yes. Mother of God. Holy shit. Okay. So the lens that you're choosing to look through. So, when it comes to uncertainty, when it comes to kind of being in transitional phases in our lives, I think that we have to employ a lot of trust. And this is when we find the phrase, walking by faith and not by sight, especially in this month of March. And I mean, it doesn't matter if you follow astrology or not, right? In my world, I look through the lens of astrology very frequently. Okay, so you're going to hear me reference it quite a bit. But there is so much uncertainty in the month of March, and it's not even like uncertainty more than it is just confusion. It's, the advice or the action that makes the most sense at this time is to shine your lights on the road as opposed to shining your lights on the fog, because when you shine your lights on fog, it just gets, your visibility just goes down, right? So in practicing surrender and thinking about how to do so in minimizing resistance in our surrender, right? Because that's kind of the whole point, right? Is to kind of not resist the flow and the change and the tides. What do you think is the point of all of this happening? Do you think that it's just kind of leading to catastrophe? I see a lot of people who get caught up in narratives that are being spun in the news and media and social media, all kinds of stuff that you can apply yourself to that ultimately at the end of the day is just a really interesting story. It's a really fun show. It's something, and it is, again, it is a choice to apply yourself to various topics or thought forms that exist within the collective, right? And it might feel incredibly convincing too. It might feel, and that's kind of the whole point, right? People are making money off of you getting caught up in these storylines and such, right? So it might feel really sensational. It might feel really important, right? It might feel like I need to know about this, right? Everybody needs to know about this. And so it'll be harder to detach, but isn't that kind of required for surrender, is an element of detachment, right? Practicing non-attachment, I think, is a lot easier when we assume that life is happening for us as opposed to us, right? When you look at things happening for you and not to you, then automatically you're putting the victim mentality into question, right? You're challenging a victim mentality that perhaps you've held your whole life, right? You wouldn't be the only one. But then additionally, you're kind of forced to just have an increase of self-awareness, right? Alongside the power of the lenses that you're looking through, something else I want to point out is your body's effort to control outcomes oh my God. It is so ingrained, I think, in our beingness that we have no idea. We don't even realize it. We don't realize when we are attempting to control an outcome. We have no idea. Truly, seriously, you just kind of slip into and I'm speaking from personal experience. I'm speaking from catching my clients in it, they're talking about things that I'm just and I'll challenge them and I'll offer things and then they're they don't like being challenged, right? They don't like being, but the reason I'm doing it is because I can see them actively engaging in self-sabotage. And I'm hey, just trying to peel it back a little bit so that they can discover it themselves. And it is incredibly convincing, the stories that we tell ourselves, so that we don't see how we're screwing things up, right? One primary example is when you are in a relationship and you don't hear from your partner all day and they didn't do you the courtesy of texting you earlier on to say that hey honey, I'm so sorry, I'm going to be really busy with work today, I'm not going to be on my phone, I just wanted to give you a heads up, right? I love you, I'm still here, I'm going to be really, really busy today, right? Maybe they didn't get a chance to do that. Maybe they weren't in the mood, or it didn't cross their mind, they got carried away really quickly. Maybe you guys had a little tiff and they just needed the space and they didn't communicate that to you. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Okay. The point is that they didn't communicate. What do? Do you just kind of disengage and just assume that they're busy? Or do you sit there and spiral? Do you become dysregulated and wonder what's going on and wonder what it's going to be like when they get home, or when your next conversation takes place, what the hell are they going to say? Like, you're prepping yourself for disaster when this person's just not, they just haven't texted you. And like, you just don't know, you don't know what's going on with them, right? Maybe they're busy, and sure, maybe it is out of pocket, right? Yeah, they should probably text you, right? But like, you also kind of, when you bring it back to, I can only control what I can control, then you have a renewed kind of understanding of your agency here. Do you see what I'm getting at? That doesn't make it easy, right? None of this is easy. We're humans. When our sense of safety or security gets involved, it gets incredibly challenging, right? And so part of this, when I was getting ready to film this, part of what came through was the understanding that like, this is a practice, right? This is a practice. So in the description, or in the example that I just gave about, your relationship, right? Man, I can't even tell you how many times I have sabotaged my relationship. Like, when I'm like actively working on surrender, when I'm actively working on non-attachment, and the next thing you know, I like get dysregulated and I sabotage. And what is that? It's just an effort to control an outcome, right? It is an exercise of control. Do you see I guess I didn't really make the connection. So when you're sabotaging, that is controlling the outcome, because if you, and this is all totally under the table, we don't realize when this is happening, right? So I'm going to explain it to you the way it was explained, the way that I learned it, okay? So when we sabotage, right? When we sit there and spiral all day, we don't hear from this person, and then they finally text us and we're like, where have you been? Right? Like, or whatever it is, right? When we assume the worst, or when we, you see what I'm saying? The whole that goes down, like, right. We all know. Because there's a part of us that expects this person to be doing something that it like, really, in the grand scheme of things, it is not. We expect them to not have our best interest in mind. We expect them to be off doing some fuck shit, like in short, like whatever that is, right? Whether it's just being a child and ignoring you all day and not being respectful, or something else, yeah. And so that assumption is just kind of this mechanism to keep you, I guess, in this place where you feel like you're in control. Because if you know what's going on, right? We got to know what's going on. If you know what's going on, then you have an idea of the outcome, right? And so something that I've noticed in my own life, and then in the lives of my clients, is that, like, for many people, when control is not something that they feel that they have access to at that time, if somebody is stunted, like emotionally stunted, or lacks self-awareness, and they're in a relationship, one of the things that they might do to give themselves a sense of control is break up with you, right? Like, this gives them a sense of control. Right? So there's so many kind of things here, but ultimately what it comes down to is, like, when we are in a place where we need to surrender, or we're being asked by God to surrender, then the control thing is really important, because there are many things that are in your control, but there are also many more things than you realize that are not in your control. So it kind of brings in this question of, like, what gives you a sense of control, right? For me, it's cleaning. For my partner, it might be like lacing shoes. For some people, it's like doing their finances. Maybe going for a walk with their dog. Like, there are things that are in your control, right? Doing your skincare, doing your makeup. That's a big part of this. So kind of, I guess the whole point of this video, the whole point of this message is to say that, like, you hear a lot of language that comes up in the collective around, you know, how to move forth in a way, you know, it's meant to be helpful, right? How to move forth, you know, through the astrology or through the energies that are present that is supportive to you. But I think that if we listen to collective guides, we listen to them a lot, and I noticed that a lot of people have this complaint that nothing really seems to change and that it's not actually helpful, and that actually things just kind of make them feel worse in a way, you know? I think that a lot of people find themselves stuck in this loop of listening to a lot of wisdom. And this is also like Jupiter and Gemini, you know, which is a transit. Again, this topic is applicable. You know, what I'm talking about here is applicable at any moment in time. But right now, in my time, space, and place, Jupiter is in the sign of Gemini. So there's this element of like logic, right? That is, yeah, highlighted. Logic during a time when like things are just completely illogical, and things don't make sense, but also you're kind of being asked to not use your logic, right? So there's a challenge there. Getting caught up in the details is a lot of what is getting in our way at this time. Anyways, and so we have these members of the collective who they just want help. And so they're going to readers or astrologers, or they're consuming this content, and it's almost like it makes it worse. And I think that part of that is because we're, as collective guides, we're receiving information, but we're not like incubating it. We're not giving it the time to like integrate and then to actually study it. Because I've heard the term surrender be thrown around quite a bit, but I haven't heard anyone really explain how to surrender. You know, like people will talk about like Saturn in Pisces, which like, you know, Saturn's a generational planet. So like a lot of people have their natal Saturn in the sign of Pisces. So at the time that I'm recording this, a lot of people are in their Saturn return, right? So the lessons of that placement have a lot to do with surrender. What the fuck does that mean? How do you, like, you could go through your entire Saturn return and never learn how to surrender. Just those years of your life sucked, right? So like, I just think at some point you have to question why it's not helping. Why is it not helping? Why is this not helping? Why I'm doing everything that I can. Why do I still feel like shit? Well, it's because a lot of the people that are, a lot of the young voices that are very accessible are not, they're also uneducated. And I hate to like put it like that, but a lot of the time it doesn't mean that they're not good readers. It doesn't mean that they're not in touch with their intuition, but it does mean that they are lacking knowledge. They're lacking a knowledge base, right? And you know, it's a privilege to have the time to pour into one's knowledge, right? One's studies, right? It's a privilege to have the time to expand your knowledge base like that, right? But it's also kind of a duty. If you're acting as a guide or a channel to the collective, that's kind of your job, dude, you know? So I've always kind of taken issue with certain kinds of content that I see and things that are much more casual that I actually find to be very detrimental. You know, this is sacred work. And this is also ancient work. So when I see, and you know, that's, we're talking about one topic here, but like, if you're new to my channel, like I'm a tarot reader and I'm studying astrology actively, right? Like I'm deep in the work, right? And I do a lot of things behind the scenes that I just haven't presented to you guys yet because I'm still incubating, right? I'm still working on it, right? I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready to bring it forward. But this is one of those things where I see people, you know, why is that? Why am I, because I understand that these are ancient practices. I understand that these are things that like there's no possible way that in my entire lifetime I could acclimate I could integrate the full scope of knowledge or whatever. Like, there's no way. So I at least need to give myself like a few years, right? I've been practicing tarot for like a long time. I've been like reading cards. The tarot specifically, it hasn't been that long, but I've been doing energy work, Reiki, and various forms of divination for like 10 years. Tarot I picked up much later because I was involved in other works. But I didn't have the time to dedicate to studying and expanding my knowledge base until pretty recently. I'm also super neurodivergent. So it's been really, really hard to kind of like, get my footing and create a sense of stability to where I can pour into my work and not just be spinning my wheels, right? And this is a part of like healing and the spiritual process, and eventually like learning how to surrender, really, which is what we're talking about here. Like, that's kind of, this has been a big lesson for me. I also have my natal Saturn in Pisces, like, so like this is applicable to my human experience as well. So I find that like a lot of my folks that come to me, they're just, they keep hitting this wall of frustration of like, I need help and I keep going to collective guides and I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. Well, I think it's because a lot of what they find, a lot of the messages that come through, what these folks will share is kind of like half-baked. A lot of it is half-baked, I guess, would be the term. And so to what I said in the beginning, my greatest fear, if anything is taken from this video, I would like for it to be that we very intentionally use the word surrender with also carrying the definition and the how to and like the why it's important, and like, the word surrender also coming with a guidebook, right? Because otherwise what we find with the word surrender is that it is just, again, a sub-in for let it go, move on. Like, what do you mean you can't get over it? What do you mean you can't, right? Like it is kind of, it's kind of fucked up. Like, it's kind of like, it's kind of fucked up, So that is my spiel for you. Yeah, I've been thinking about this one for a while because I do so much studying and I do so much deep work on the back end that you guys don't see. And I was like hearing people throw this word around and I'm like, literally no one is telling you how to do that. Like, this is just a fun word. What do you even mean surrender? How do I do that? I feel like a lot of the concepts that we talk about as collective guides and collective readers and collective mediums, whatever the hell, like there are so many things that we talk about that would really do well to come with a guidebook or a set of instructions somehow, like that's kind of our job. And I feel like a lot of folks don't really do that super well. So yeah, I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this brings you like illumination of some kind. And yeah, please let me know in the comments if there's anything I didn't touch on. I can make a part 2, or I can communicate with you in the comment section. Okay. If you have any questions, please email me. If there's anything you need advice on, please email me. And yeah, please subscribe and drop a like and drop a comment. Okay. I love you.